So we will finish chapter 17 today, I think. So what I might do is first read the remaining, at least a couple of those shlokas, and then we'll go through this. We'd finished at 22 and we're starting 23. And then there's 28. So I feel certain we'll finish this. Om Tat Sad Iti Nirdesho Brahmanas Trividas Smrita Brahmanastena Vedascha Yajñascha Vihita Pura. Om Tat Sat. ऐसे यह 3 प्रकार का सच्चिदानंद घन ब्रह्म का नाम कहा गया है। उसी से सृष्टि के आदि काल में ब्राह्मण और वेद तथा यज्ञ आदि रचे गए। This is 23. So this is now wrapping up this chapter. Just for context, just for memory's sake, and I know some of you who weren't around, this chapter took us Shraddha, Traya, Vibhag, Yoga. The name of the chapter is Shraddha, is like, what do you believe in? Because pretty much everything that, before we experience, we believe. I don't think so. What do you think? All these are like pointing to what do you believe in. When you say, do you really believe that? What do you think? Even when you ask a question, what do you think? That's what I think. Really what you're saying in a way that I believe this to be true. What do you believe, right? And so we've gone through this. I will not go through the details of it, but saying that you cannot really process, you cannot be without some sort of belief in something at some point, somewhere. And that broad spectrum of belief is broadly categorized in 3. So Shraddha is that, faith, more intense. And the 3 kinds, not the 3 types, there is no division that one does not seep into the other and second does not seep into the third. We've talked through this, that in fact it's a rather continuous spectrum. So Shraddha and a Traya is of three kinds. Vibhag is like categories, and Yoga. The point being that even through the understanding of the categorization of material energies, the system around us, we can navigate through it. We can figure out an efficient and a balanced way to reach the destination ultimately. Otherwise, we get wrapped up in it. We keep running into snakes. Jai Shri Krishna, Happy Father's Day. Yeah.
Yeah. તમને સંભળાશે અહીંયા બરાબર. તમે થાકી જાવ તો પછી અહીંયા આવી જાવ.
Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna. And so this chapter has taken us through. I mean, this actually, remember, it started in chapter 14. The real topic started in chapter 14, which was Traya Vibhag Yoga, which is the one we're doing in Hindi on Sundays. Like tomorrow we'll continue, for example, on chapter 14 in Hindi. So taking another step back, some of you may have heard this, but I think others may not, and this should be helpful, I think. So Gita has 18 chapters. If you think about it, Traya, like 3, if you divide the Gita into 3 broad divisions, roughly 6, 6, and 6, right? So the first 6, generally speaking, take us in one direction, point to one thing, and like sort of are addressing one major aspect. The second 6, from the 7th through the 12th, are then addressing another aspect, like cumulatively building, not leave this now and do this, but really sort of growing and developing and building. Just like in a tree, you have the root system. Once that is healthy and properly grown, then the stem grows, like the main, right, the body. And then as that strengthens, nourishes, you have the whole flora that manifests. So even that, you can see like 3 broad. Obviously, they're all connected. They're not only connected, they're dependent. Not only connected and dependent, but the entire thing is actually dependent on the source, on the root. Right, the stem and the leaves and the branches and the twigs and the flowers and the fruits will perish essentially if the basis is not strong and nourished. And I can give many other examples of it also. significance of number 3, for example. But like that, even in the Gita, and then the third is obviously from the 13th chapter to the 18th chapter. So we're towards the end of that third section. If you, and Purvivan might resonate with this also, if a patient comes to an ER, some sort of an emergency, like blood gushing out or whatever, right? Like some accident, the first thing that like everybody thinks is like the triage mode. How am I going to stop this limping broken bone or the blood gushing out? To just address that first. This isn't the time to diagnose or think about what happened, what did you do, whose fault was this, all that. First, stop the blood flow or whatever the case may be, the triage mode. The second then is now treat it. Now that it's stabilizing, now treat. And then the third is, okay, as you're about to be discharged, the medication, the prescription. How are you going to prevent this from happening ever again? How, right? You cured it, but how are you going to prevent it also? And that's a full treatment spectrum. It's not enough just to stop the blood and say, okay, do whatever. It's not enough to not address that and just do this. And so this is a full and complete treatment. And so it is with the Gita also. It's a full and complete addressing of the problems that we face on a daily basis. And so the way I have processed, this is my personal processing of it. I haven't read someone saying like this, or the Lord hasn't suggested that necessarily in the Gita itself. But it has helped me to think like that, and the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that that's a good way to apply the Gita. Is in the first 6 chapters. In the beginning, Arjuna is in an ER mode. If you go back to, he's crying, he's sitting down, he's depressed, he's like, and he even says in the beginning of the 2nd chapter, I feel cowardly, I'm lacking courage, I'm so confused, I can't even see clearly, and then he says, well, I'm trembling, I'm perspiring, I want to run away, I don't want to face this. All those are signs of psychological emergency, if you will, right? And so the first things first, the first 6 chapters, as you remember, are focused primarily on your nature. Who are you? Do you even fully understand who you are, who Bhishma is, who Drona is? And you're concocting these notions and ideas about this will happen and that will happen and these are mine and these are not, all that. So let's just address that, the very basic problem, fundamental first. And so there is that Atma Yoga, Sannyas, Karma Yoga, and the Sanyam Yoga, all of it. And in the 6th chapter, toward the end of it, you see stability. Yeah? The Krishna's words are stabilizing. Arjuna is showing signs of stabilizing. And the 7th chapter onwards, Jnana Vidyan Yoga, the real cure, the real treatment, is when he starts to talk about himself, God. That if you only depend on who you are and who they are, and I'm Atma, and you'll prop up, you'll get strong, and you'll slip again. You might fall again. You might bleed again. You might break your bone again. Well, hold my hand. We just meditated on Father's Day Dhyan. Or understand that in the end, I am with you. I am in the backdrop. Right? Like a wave understanding in the beginning that, well, I'm really this water that's in the same waves. But then ultimately understanding that we are all in this mighty ocean. Really nothing to worry about. Because when I rise in the ocean. When I fall in the ocean. I'm formed of the ocean. And I break into the ocean. And every moment throughout my life cycle, the wave forming, growing, rising, falling, and shattering, every moment in my entire life cycle, I am nothing other than that ocean alone. And by the way, that is in every one of them, the very identical one. And so that's the second part of it, that 7th, 8th, 9th, like Gyan Vigyan Yoga, Akshar Brahma Yoga, Raj Vidya Kuya Yoga, Vibhuti Yoga, Vishwarup Darshan Yoga, and then Bhakti Yoga. Right? Like, hey, you're actually never disconnected from me. You go wherever I go. Bhakti Yoga essentially says that you don't know it because you don't think about it, you've forgotten it. But the truth is, you cannot separate from me. No wave can run on its own on the street. If you're a wave, then you're in the ocean, or like in the body of water, that is, right? So that it takes us through the 12th chapter, And then the 13, now, okay, here's your discharge, here's your wheelchair, here's your crutch, whatever it is, the do's and the don'ts. If you never want to get wrapped up in this again, then understand the entire broad spectrum of this. 13th chapter is Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhag Yoga. The observer and the observed, right? The field and the knower of the field. And in that expose, in the 14th chapter, he says, by the way, the reason you get wrapped up in the first place, toward the end of the 13th chapter, and the beginning of the 14th chapter, he had said that, by the way, if you think about why did I slip and fall in the first place? What happened if I am all that? Well, because you got caught up and ran into snags in the outer system. Well, tell me more about it. What do you mean? And there's three ways the system works. One side of it, it's like easy to navigate. It's a smoother sail. The other is really rocky and rough. And the third one just goes down straight to the bottom and just sits there and does nothing until it becomes hungry and then robs, steals, begs, borrows, whatever. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic in the 14th chapter. And so that theme has continued. In the 16th chapter, if you remember, the Deva Asur Sampatti Vibhag Yoga, there was a big focus on the negative energy, Asur. Like in the first two shlokas, he said, all the positive energy has these attributes, features, and benefits. Let me tell you about the negative behavioral patterns. And then he says, but don't worry about it. You're already endowed with, you're born with a big endowment of positivity. And so he goes up and down, back and forth on it, so that we can continue to get clarity. In the 17th chapter, he says it goes deeper than that. Even what you believe in, even when we read through, even what you eat, even what you give, this is where we stopped the last time. Even when you perform any tasks, even when you speak with someone, remember that? Even when you work hard, yajna, dan, tapa, all of that, anudvega, karam, vakyam, satyam, priya, hitam, chayat. When you speak, you can speak in a way that can have three kinds of effects, depending on what's at the root of it. And so every aspect of our behavior, of our expression, can be sort of mapped out to these three broad categories. Our whole existence as an external object, as an outer one. If we think of ourselves as a physical, as a mortal, as a body, as just the mind or intellect, then essentially the thesis is that there's no way around it. Then you're just going to find yourself somewhere floating around in these three broad categories. And then towards the end of the 14th chapter, he said, but you, though, are not none of these three. You're above that, all of that, right? Gunatit. You're above and beyond. You're just the observer. And so last time, does that all resonate, Madhvi, Purvi-Ben, Sanjeev-bhai?
Nice summary.
So this helps with the continuity, right? Why did I do that? Because we're about to wrap up this. Now, it will still continue in the 18th chapter a little bit, about a third, maybe a lot, maybe 20-25%. This still continues. He's not quite.
I don't know because Ashay wasn't here, Mohini was, but the three gunas that he's talking about. Did you follow that?
The modes.
The three modes, like tamas is the mode of ignorance.
Mean to interrupt. Yeah. It said that in prior sessions, the sort of insistence was that whatever exists, anything that exists, everything that exists, in different proportions has sattvikta, rajasikta, tamasikta in them. But they said, by the way, but you're not a thing, and therefore you actually, the spirit, right? That's not an object that can be touched and felt and all that. Actually, you are not touched by this. You are immaculate. You're stainless. You're spotless. Nothing can come near you, catch you, and therefore you have two ways to be. You can either situate yourself in the original self, the real you. Then you have no worries. You have nothing to even perform, because then you got your own original self, which is flooded with the joy that you now so desperately seek, and the happiness and the goodness that you beg for. You're already flooding with it. You're the giver. You're the source of it, because you're in me and I'm in you, and we're one and we're not separate. But if until that stage that you experience or believe it, or if you're not imagining that, then the more sattvic choices that you can make, the easier choices, the smoother, you have a better chance, a stronger chance, the more peaceful path that you take, then you have a better chance of actually getting through this rough ride and finishing like the race or the ride and getting that to that.
So to me, I feel it feels like whenever you come across...
Without a doubt, Puriban, absolutely. That is really the central point of like your realization that you're the observer, right? One time, I don't know if you remember when we were doing the 14th chapter, I'd given an imagined example, like of the fans. Like if there was a big glass room, and there was a fan at the floor that was blowing air above, and if there was a ceiling fan that was blowing air below, and if there was a table fan that was just blowing air sideways, and you took a small piece of paper and like threw it from the top, you're observing from outside, from the glass walls, or a hair was dropped, it would just, who can tell? There's no telling where it will go. It's meaningless. It doesn't matter to fight about or to argue about, wow, this went there because of this or because of that. This is sort of an interpretation of the Gita, of this third phase of the Gita. Well, it depends on which wind it got caught up. But now look, that hair or that piece of paper is rising above. Well, now it went down. Well, now it's just floating around. It depends, and it's going to happen depending on the resultant force. I don't know if you're studying the vectors again in physics, but of the three forces, and it's going to be continuously tossed and turned around. It's the only way to think about it is it's meaningless. It doesn't have any purpose. No matter how high it goes, it's still going to be stuck to the ceiling wall, or no matter how low it goes, it's there. The trouble is we associate with it. That's the body and the mind. That piece of paper that's being tossed and turned, that's the body-mind complex. That we think, we're convinced that we are that.
Gotta be disassociated.
And he's saying, no, remember you're observing from the outside? You're the observer. So don't get too caught up in it. It's like people cry when they see some serious scene in the movie, on the screen. Like they become so one with it, that how can this happen? Oh my God, I can't take it. This is so sad. Oh, poor thing. That's that, right? Or they get so excited. Yeah, give him another punch. Like nothing is. None of that is happening. There is no injustice. There is no justice. There is no hero. There is no villain. None of it. You got so caught up in it, and so it is in here also. That to your point again, Pruven, the more you can distance, the more you can practice drawing a wedge in between the real you and the imposter you. Then can you start regaining control of reality. Otherwise it's virtuality, right? The whole life is virtuality. Like all the entire life has passed living the virtuality, thinking this is the reality and clueless about that. So, agree?
Yeah. I'm just thinking that, but in
totally, never passively, super engaged, in fact, quite actively.
Not a passive observer.
No. Yeah.
I'm going to ignore it. You don't want to ignore it. You want to experience it. You want to process it, and then.
See, it's sort of like Arjuna. I mean, he didn't passively fight. He had to actively fight.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a tsunami that's about to rise and destroy the village nearby, and you're actively engaging to stop that, to smash that tsunami before it washes ashore, right? Then you're actively engaging with it, but you're also realizing that, well, the tsunami came from the ocean and it's going to fall in the ocean, and you're not like becoming really sad that, oh, I'm destroying something. But you must control it right now, because those who don't know or understand are going to be really tortured. And so it's simultaneous. It isn't just active or just passive. It's holding it. Madhi, seems like there is a right moment in your head right now. Go for it, girl.
No. I was waiting for that.
Yeah, dispassionately engaged, right?
Yeah.
Like not with a burning fire in your heart, that, but dispassionately super engaged, right?
Yeah.
Not just engaged, not just engaged. I'm like not of a moment am I going to take my eye out of this. If Arjun were, he would have been beheaded on day one. There were like 1,000 people waiting to get rid of him. On the contrary, he had to crush them. So no question about it. And whether he came as Ram or Krishna or any other, the only role model has been super engaged, very engaged, right? It's an engaged God. That's the other, by the way, that's the glory of our religion, of our faith belief system, of our scripture. It has always upheld active engagement. It has never said that like run away or like don't do it, like no, don't care. Quite the contrary. Not just engaged, but super engaged, right? Like putting themselves on the line, going out front, leaders. So walking us through those lanes, and then has brought up to here where the conclusion, what the shlok that I read, and really the following 4 shloks, I'll just summarize those, and then we'll just go directly to the last verse in this Gita after that. Essentially what you just heard when I read was Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho. And he says, when you may have heard in Satyanarayana Puja or any other puja, like Panditji say Om Tat Sat. Even at the end of every chapter in the Gita, including this one, it will end with Om Tat Sat Iti. Bhagwad Gita Su, Upanishadsu, Brahma Vidyayam, Yoga Shastre, Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yogo Nama Saptadasho Adhyaya Shri Krishna Arpanam. So that's what you'll hear at the end of this. And so what he's now saying is that, look, you may have heard those terms, Om Tat Sat, and you may have heard the term Satchidananda. And we have, most of us, like Satchidananda. And he says that Om Tat Sat, when the Brahman says or the Panditji says, he's pointing to the Satchidananda. They're identical. One is more pointing toward the other is it, that sort of thing. But essentially they're talking about the same thing. And how so and why, what about it, are this and the following 3 shloks. And so we'll just decode that, and then we'll wrap up with the last shlok for today's session. This is Om Tat Sat. Om is like the icon. Om is an icon, right? Essentially, like when you double click on the G for Google or the X for Excel or W for Word on your computer desktop, that isn't quite the word software, that W. That is your path to it, though. If that gets deleted, like, oh my God, I don't have Word. What happened to my Word? Yeah, nothing has happened to your Word. It's there. Just go right click and choose that, and then write and put it on your desktop, and there's your Word. Or Excel or any of that. And those who know your help desk will know how to go behind the scene, where it is wired, where it's hidden, and they'll open up the folder and drag it and put it on your desktop. That here is your icon. Now I'm all set. I can type up all I want, and I can create the spreadsheets and do my internet search and all of that. Om is like that. It signifies, it captures, it's an image, but it is the image of God. It signifies, it captures it, like behind it is the whole mother of that software, the entire ecosystem, all of it, right? Just like behind on the W, it will only specifically take you to whatever allows you to do the word things. And Excel would do that. If there was an icon ever created by Microsoft, Apple, whomever, that if you click on that, it'll do everything. Maybe ChatGPT, who knows if it comes with an iPad. Although I don't know if it'll cook yet and feed, or right? Or
You never know. Next 10 years. Who knows?
Maybe.
So fast.
Yeah, maybe. But if there was ever an icon that if you clicked on, that will be all, end all in all. And that would be a fascinating use of the word, the Om. Om should be the icon. I'll put it right now. Maybe I'll get a patent on it.
Exactly. Yes.
That for 10 years from now, the best software, the solution, the panacea, and we'll call it panacea. Send you buy. There you go, man. We're making progress. We have the name, we have the icon, we will have the pattern. We just need the software, brother.
The website.
Yeah. Someone just needs to come up with it. We've got everything else. So panacea with an Om symbol can solve all the problems. So Om is like that. God, right? Why? Because God is, we've described God, that. And he says, what about it though, God? And he says, Satchidananda. What do you mean by what about it? Satchidananda is that. And what about Satchidananda? We've gone through this a few times, but in summary, Sat is everything that exists. Sat signifies existence. Forget everything that exists. The principle of existence. The foundational principle, the fundamental, because of which whatever exists. Meaning if that principle wasn't even there, just like if I throw something up, it comes down because there is some, not quite a thing, but some principle called gravity. है ना, गुरुत्वाकर्षण शक्ति जिसे कहते हैं हम लोग. If gravity did not exist, there would be no such thing as falling down. There would be nothing as like you weigh this much. If friction, the force of friction wasn't there, there would be no motion. I don't know if you know that, or if you remember high school physics. We would be stuck. We could not move. We would not be able to take one step if the principle of friction wasn't there. You can move forward because this is stopping you, and therefore the momentum puts you forward. It's mind-blowingly consistent and coherent, like how much the Gita aligns with modern science in all the way up to quantum physics and all of it. And subatomic particles and the wave theory, the string theory, all of it. There's a place in it. Sanjeeva, for your next dissertation, your presentation, I'm seeding you ideas. So, seriously, there is a guy who I need to connect you with, like who thinks like that, who's crazy like that, a little bit, like you. And Madhvi, I'm thinking of Yash.
Yeah, no, that's what I was...
Yeah. So Sat is existence itself, and therefore anything that exists is fundamentally rooted in it. Chit, Chaitanya is good.
No.
Crack it.
Because I was thinking about just kind of continuing of what you were talking about.
Absolutely, Sanjeev. During my days of contemplation and reflection, like the phase that you're in, I distinctly remember spending quite a bit of time on both these theories of voidism and the whole concept of zero, and then I obviously went beyond that, and the Gita was it for me. What I realized is that there isn't any falsity in that philosophy. It's true, the voidism. It's just that it's not complete. It's incomplete. Void is still a stop, a stage. Beyond that, there is the complete, which is like quite the opposite. It is so filled, so full, and so flooded, in fact, as I say, right? But because it's a principle, because it's the spirit which cannot be touched, felt, we tend to just like fold that into, well, then therefore, if I cannot see it, then it doesn't exist, and therefore it's void. If I cannot touch it, if I cannot any of that, and so but higher thinking leads us to the sort of like curving back reality of it. And I recognize that these come across as mumbo jumbo words to most, and rightly so. They did to me as well, until you're swimming in it. And so, again, to your point about the Gita and Krishna, why Krishna? Why one person? Or what is all this about love? Krishna Prem, Bhagwat Prem, that is what it floods with. The void is filled and flooded with that principle, or that I don't want to call it a thing because it's not, that experience of love. So the point being, it's not false in my experience and in my observation and my learning. Voidism or Buddhist theory is not false, because there are many Hindus who are vehemently opposed and will take a position that that's just absurd. And I think in my observation and learning, they're both equally false, because both of you are incomplete, and on the other side. So
it's a strange thing. It's almost
that's a simple, beautiful example. Two sides of a coin and like fighting all day long. It's a heads, no, it's a tails. Well, both are kind of half incomplete. Neither is complete. So
what do they mean by that everything is void? What are they trying to get at with that?
That nothing really exists. That this is only a virtuality, as I call it, not a reality. There is no substance.
They use logic to prove that.
There's no substantiality. There's nothing. You might hear this, but it actually doesn't exist, or the sound, or the ear, or you and I, or nothing exists, and that is just like a very
What is the point in
a very depressing way to live. You might as well be dead.
What is the point in saying that?
That's something of substance. They've never gone. That theory has never gone to. Well, then what is it? And we say, well, I want to go there. I want to know that, and that's where the underpinning flood of love, as I call it, is it. So.
I almost felt like that's where they talk more about Brahma, like
Mhm.
energy.
Something to go by, and that's
Something
how
tangible.
we are.
Yeah.
Something tangible, because that's
Yeah.
how we are.
Even though, like,
wired.
he says to
So the very significant point there to remember also, though, that but he never says that Brahma is not it, or
Yeah,
don't do
that's
that.
it.
He says
He
you
never
can. Brahma is fine. If you want to pursue the nirakar, like the formless aspect, it's fine. But let me caution that it's a very torturous path, and it's filled with, you might slip and slide and be hurt and bruised. Why, when there is a beautiful scenic path, right? If you want to, but otherwise, yeah, knock yourself out. Go that way if you want
It's
to.
like a math problem. Like, why do we have all these formulas? Formulas are given so that it makes.
It's a good one. Like Kana would argue with me. Well, I have a calculator. Why do I have to memorize this? Like he wants to go beyond. Like, and at some point, he actually convinced me, believe it or not, that it. I started to think in my own head, like it's not very smart to like keep only going back to that. Like it's gonna take forever to get like keep growing from there. So. Anyway, and so I see the point. So that was Sat, right? The existence itself. If it exists, he's saying then that other, the fundamental of it. Chit is knowledge itself, Chetana, Chaitanya, cognition, in other words. The ability, the energy, the way, what is it because of which we're able to perceive anything. Not just us, a fish or a tortoise or a bird, or a plant that starts to turn towards the sun, the sunflower, like following the track of the sun, or if you keep it in the dark, it really tries to point towards, like, so what is that? The knowledge. What does it know? What's in its DNA? An ant smelling water or whatever and just like going away, or from one end to the other end in the pursuit of that little crystal of sugar. And there is also salt, looks alike, but she never goes there. Only flocks here. Like how? Why? What is it? Whatever knowledge exists, how do planets, why do they always revolve around that? What holds them together? Well, because gravity is this, that. But who gave them this knowledge? And that rock, who put it in this, like coded that hey, listen, this is important, you got to stay here, don't veer off too far. Any dead, alive, whatever knowledge. When a body is dead, what tells it that okay, it's of no use? Now you start figure out your own way out. Like let others bugs eat you, whatever. Just don't. There's no point in trying to getting up. Nothing's going to happen. Anything that happens, there's knowledge underneath it, embedded in it, coded in it. It is with it. It is in it. There's no separate layer of knowledge. There's no separate spray on anything. There's no immersion. There's no programming. If it is, it's got knowledge in it. So if it is Sat, then it's got knowledge in it, Chit, right then and there, right? And then the Ananda aspect of it. No matter what it is, whatever it is trying to know, whatever Sat, whatever Chit, it's all in the pursuit of Ananda. The little ant going there is for pursuit of Ananda, refraining from the body of water is for pursuit of Ananda, and the bird and the elephant and the tiger and the sadhu and the daku and all of them, there is only one counter because, and it's all in it. Ananda is already in it, but because we're looking from outside, I'm pursuing it from outside. I want in some dish that I will eat, or some praise that I will hear of me, or some pretty face that the mirror might show me, some like these kinds of concoctions I'm seeking from outside, and therefore I am always running hither to, right, and never finding it because it's inside me, not outside me, because I am it. I am sweet, a sugar crystal running all day long throughout its existence. I know what sweet feels like. So the sat is there and the chit is there in a crystal of sugar. And looking outside here and there, where is that sweet? Where is the sweet? I know what sweet feels like. I know it exists. No one can tell me there's no sweet. I know. But I'm not finding it. And if it were to curve back, if you will, and lick itself and like, oh my God, dang it, I am what makes everything sweet. I am that sweet. And so that's the Anand aspect of it. And so where he was saying that Om symbol, the software called Panacea with the icon Om, and that's patented with two friends 10 years ago, right? And their sons devised it. That is this. He's saying that it signifies Satchidananda. That's Parabrahma Paramatma. These 4 shloks. We'll just do it in one shot. Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho. It's saying, don't be stuck in the symbol Om. Don't just say that the symbol is God. I mean, you can put it from here to there. You can put it down. You can obviously don't insult it, don't disparage it, don't abuse it, because it is signifying. Just like our mother's picture or our children's picture, we're not going to throw them in. No matter how you pissed off at him, you don't throw it in the trash, like, because we love and we care, and it means a lot. Like that, Om is the highest revered, because of what it's signifying. If you understand it. That you want that icon to be protected. Everything else can go in the trash can, but that icon has got to be front and center. Is what he's saying in the subsequent shlok. That those who know, I haven't read it yet, but he says, make sure that they never become forgetful of that. They protect and guard that icon on their desktop with their life, because that is their life. If that is gone, they're gone, because they've identified with it. They have disidentified with the misidentity all lifelong, that on the body and the mind, that they've broken off, they've disconnected from it, the wrong identity, the misidentity, and they have re-identified with the truth, with the reality. And in that process, they've forgotten themselves. They've dropped off their limited identity, and they've assumed the unlimited identity. The finite must dissolve in the infinite. You cannot keep both, right? If you want to embrace infinity, how will you do that remaining finite? How long will your arms stretch? Try the redwoods in the sequoia. The whole family cannot reach around it. So if you want the experience of infinite, you have to be prepared to be able to let go of the finite. That means everything. What is finite? Even my body. Even the mind, all of it. And let go, meaning not like killing yourself or being dead, not attached to it, not being stuck in it, not being stuck with it, not insisting that this is how it is or that is how it is. In the same Bhagwad Gita, does he not say, well, this is how it is and this is how it is. And by the way, this is how it is. It's a lot more than our puny little brain can fully catch it. So all of those can coexist, because it's existence itself. So coexistence is never a problem in truth. Truth always coexists. All the variations and the gradations of truth, because when we say this is my truth, I empathize, I don't experience, but I hold space for your truth, which is saying that that's not my truth, but I know it's your truth. But acknowledging that, it has a place for it. And so in the grand scheme, these shlokas are telling us that there is space enough for all truths. Anyway, these are virtual truths. It's like in the dreamer, dreaming, there is the truth that there is someone good, and there is the truth that there's someone bad, and there's the truth that someone's hitting a lottery, and there's the truth that someone just lost everything, their house burned down. All these truths are real in the dream reality. In the higher reality, none of those truths are real. They're all false. The higher reality is yet something else, in which those many truths are untruths. Make sense?
Wait, could you repeat what the many truths were?
The many truths were the dreamer seeing that, this person hit a lottery jackpot. This person's house burned down. This is such a generous person. This is such a hideous, heinous person. These are good, bad, something right is happening. This was a bad insult and praise. Those are all mini truths in the moments of the dream. No one can tell that person that this is not true.
Everyday occurrences.
Everyday occurrence, right? And so, but at the same time, for the same dreamer, at the same place, there is a higher truth that he's unaware of. In it, these mini truths are actually untruths, right? And so it depends on where on the spectrum of truth, the relativity, the relative truths, or the absolute truth, right? Follow the words? Depending on where you're grabbing, and that is this Shraddha, Traya, Vibhag yoga. The realm of tamasita is like absolute relative life. Living constantly in relativity, like always comparing, always like this, that. And then sattvic is minimal relative, more towards absolute, being peaceful, being willing to let go, tolerant, accepting, focused on securing your joy, and not comparing, not wrapped up, not getting agitated. I mean, it's still an untruth. Sattvikta is still also, but quite closer. It's easier to wake up someone who is a light sleeper or has had enough sleep, for example, than someone who's like so badly asleep, right? It's that sort of thing. But that doesn't make the tamasic person really bad or the sattvic person really good. It's the circumstance. But consciously, now that we're aware of it, the choices we make, the options we have to choose from, we can pick and choose. We can, if we become aware of it, to make it easy for ourselves or not.
Which one do you want to?
Then we'll start wrapping up this conversation. Then I want to hear more from you. Is that Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho Brahmanas Trivida Smrita is the shlok that I read. Om Tat Sat. Om is all that. Tat is that. Sat is the truth or existence. That alone exists, as you were saying, I think, a moment ago, right? Like, or when you're defining the Buddhism and all that. So that alone exists. Or I think you also said it. When people talk about Brahma, that is what they're talking about, is how he said. And so whether you're thinking and contemplating and meditating and chanting and all that on Om, or you're trying to study and decode the complex that Satchidananda is, it's essentially that. And then he said, but I'm standing in front of you with 2 arms and 2 legs. It's me, Arjun. Like you can get wrapped up in Om all you want, or you can think of Satchidananda, but here, your friend, Krishna, is it. And there's an easy path. You can also worship me. You can try all 3 of them, and you can see which one is easier, which one starts to make sense, which one takes you closer to pure love. How do you know that you're getting closer to God? That the purity of your love, like how truly uncontaminated, expectation-free, judgment-free, fear-free, reason-free, well, because when there is no cause, so therefore there is no because, just because, love for the sake of love. The more of that purity that you're seeing increase, it's a clear sign that you're getting closer to the source, because that's how the source is. It's pure joy, pure love, pure purity, if I may. So, and he says that's standing in front of you, having taken a form for now to take care of these shenanigans that are happening here. So that was that. And then the last shlok, and he's also said that is why when you hear Pandits chanting and any stotra starts with an Om, or all the scriptures end with Om Tat Sat, what they're trying to suggest for those who are paying attention while reading the scriptures or listening to the chants is that, hey, by the way, guys, like all this is great, but do not forget that all of this belongs to it. Tena tyaktena bhanjit Ishavasa idam sarvam. Ishopanishad, the very first verse. Ishopanishad is a primary Upanishad. It's one of the most significant Upanishad. Isha is God himself. Upa is near. Upanishad is sitting near God. Isha Upanishad means the power of Isha, as if you're sitting in association with God, as you went and sat next to God. That's what Isha Upanishad means. And the very first sign in that, and you would Isha Vasya Idam Sarvam. Right? Yeah. Yeah. There you go. And so, thank you, Father. So, and what that meant was that, hey, by the way, guys, before we start, you realize that everything that exists here belongs to Him. It's all covered by Him. It's all inside it, Him. Like, and therefore, everything is Him. All it is. Now, therefore, let's Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now let's talk through everything else. But first and foremost, do not forget, do not take your eyes off of that bullseye. And whether him or her or it or whatever, like that one principle, that one energy, that one God, that one Krishna, as I take your pick, right? A name and form helps. Naam aur roop se bahut madad hoti hai na. A name and form in the primary stages absolutely helps. It's like having the wheels when you're learning the bike. No one can say that, oh, well, you don't need that because in the end you're going to have to drive without it. Yeah, I know I will. But right now this is helping me. And maybe I won't because I'm just having fun with it. I just want to keep driving it. So that was that. And then so let's do the last shlok. And then we'll finish it off. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapas tapam kritam chayat असदित्यचते पार्थ न च तत्प्रेप्यनो इह. हे अर्जुन, बिना श्रद्धा के किया हुआ हवन, दिया हुआ दान, व तपा हुआ तप, जो कुछ भी किया हुआ कर्म है, शुभ कर्म है, वह समस्त असत इस प्रकार से कहा जाता है. इसलिए वह तो न तो इस लोक में लाभदायक है और न मरने के बाद ही. And so he's ending this chapter here. And after this will be the final sermon, the executive summary, one more time, or the conclusion, since it's in the end. Moksha chapter 18 is everything that I've told you. I told you, and now I'm going to tell you again. That's that 18th chapter. So before going there, he said, like, apart from this knowledge, devoid of that knowledge, devoid of this front and center recognition that first, everything it is and it belongs to it. Whatever you do, ultimately is going to be futile. I just said it, asat. It will be perishable, it will be meaningless. You will not feel the joy in it. You will search for it, you'll be desperate for it. In the end, one is frustrated. Without Shraddha for this was the word in that, right? Ashraddhaya hutam. Without first faith in this, without believing that this might be. And if you just try to do it, you can knock yourself out. He's not saying don't do it, but he's just cautioning that you're going to come back frustrated, desperate, bruised, angry, confused, like you are now. Remember, like sitting in the chariot saying, "Na yod seti govindam." I don't know what all this is. Like, this makes no sense. I'd rather beg and all that. He says, because you've been thinking like this, and that, and therefore see where it has led you. Even with all of that. Not just you, anyone. Not just this, anything. And he used those three broad categories. Any yajna, any tap, or any dan. Those were the words in this last shlok. Yajna meaning hard work. Tap is hard work. Yajna is any value generating activity, like any business, any enterprise, any trade, like any offering, any service, anything that you do, like that is done with someone else in mind. Like not just me, but for the benefit of others. That yajna. Tap is when you're working hard to achieve something. And dan is when you're giving someone something, no matter who is giving whom what. That can fall under the category of dan. So these are the three broad categories of performance of any task that we do. So it's like, if you don't keep that in mind, everything that we just discussed, then in the end, you're going to be frustrated. And you're like, what was that? Wow, what am I looking for? Why am I not feeling fulfilled? What's missing? Something is missing still. Well, the core is missing. If the core is missing, how long can that ball withstand? If you take the core out of the laddu, or the watermelon, or the earth, or my core, if you take the core out of anything, Rather than atom, a core of an. How long can it exist? Just the electrons revolving around. How long before they get dissipated? Right. This is it. These are laws of nature, laws of thermodynamics, because they get dispersed, it gets wasted, literally. Law, and so that was the warning sign here. That therefore you must build around some core faith. You must pick some. You must have faith in something, trust in something, and then build around it. Make sure that whatever you're putting your faith in is real, good, all that. And he says there's nothing bigger, greater, better than this. And by this, even if you mean the Gita, I think that's good enough. That's close to the Lord. And so even if you start building your life, keep making Gita as your core. That whatever I say, whatever I think, whatever I do, I will pass through the filter of the Gita. Is it supported? Does it align with the message of the Gita? How I'm thinking, is it making sense? I don't know. Let me read the Gita and try to reconcile. Is it like conflicting with the message of the Gita? Is it generally aligned? I think it is. Well, maybe let me ask someone. Let's seek someone. Seek some thought partnership. And that's the path of sadhana, right? Or the way I'm talking, I don't know why this isn't working. I've been telling them, but they're not listening. Why is that? Bring in the chapter 17, initial part of the Gita filter, specifically talks about the way of talking and speaking and the choice of words that are effective versus ineffective, damaging, hurtful versus helpful. And we've gone through this. I think we were at Falguni Ben's Dushanbai's home that time. And so Gita will not let you down. You'll find the solution for any thought, any word choices, and any acts that you do. And so that could very well be the core if you don't yet take on to any god or form or this, that. And hence the glory of Sikh Dharma. What did they do? Guru Granth. Right? They made their Grantha, their Guru, their God. What a glorious, what a smart, what a wonderful way. Because they got started. And rather than getting wrapped up in fighting, and is your Guru greater? No, is my Guru better? No, this, that. They said, well, wait. Let's read what this is making sense. This is feeling good. This is bringing peace. This is holding us together as a community. This is strengthening us, nourishing us. People are like staying together. Let's make this our Guru. And that this strength is still, that Dharma is still crushing it. Right? So, and I uphold it. I glorify that for that. So can this be also. So there is always a positive way to out of any situation than being wrapped up and bogged down by the mountain of negativity in it as well. So that's where he. So what he said was like, if your core is missing, then it's going to perish, and therefore do not be without the core. And the warning was that you are feeling the way you're feeling, and you're sitting down depressed and morose because you're ignoring the core of truth, the reality of you, who you are, which is identical, by the way, with the core of your Guru, the core of your Nana, Dada, all these. There is only one core around which, for example, the entire solar system, all 9 planets, or 9, they all revolve around that one head, the king, that the sun is, right? So if Venus says, I don't believe that. I don't care. I'm going to go my own way. You go your own way for a while, and then who knows where Venus is? Venus is gone, right? If it could. The truth is, another secret, the truth is it cannot. And so it is, like it or not, recognize it or not, accept it or not, so can I not, actually. Right? And the more I align it, around it, accept it, the same right becomes joyful, beautiful, loving, giving, and all that, and effortless. The biggest glory of the Gita, effortless. Venus no longer has to exert. For it to be without it, it will have to exert constantly to get away from it. But here, like millennia after millennia, right? So let's end with that. Again, Om Tat Sat Iti is what the chapter ends with. Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yogo Nama Saptadasho Adhyaya Samapta. And what that loaded statement was, that comes at the end of each, that Do not forget Om Tat Sat. All that is this. This alone is all that. Iti is period, meaning end of story. Om Tat Sat Iti. Om, God signified by the symbol, all that, Sat alone exists. God alone exists. End of story. Iti. Om Tat Sat Iti. Period. Nothing beyond that. Nothing above that. Separate from it. Right? So Om Tat Sat Iti is the message of Srimad Bhagwad Gita. So that's what it's like. What you just heard. What is in Su is it? What is in the Gita? This is not an ordinary Gita. This is not Lata Mangeshkar's song or Kishore Kumar's song or anything. This is the song of God. This is the one song that God Himself sung. Song as in like He's not whistling and drumming and all that. It's beautiful. It's poetic. It's beautiful. There's meters. There is lyrics. There is a reason, rhyme, and there's just again poetic. This is like the feeling of the poetry is in it also. It's transforming. It's soothing. It's healing. All the positive effects that poetry can have. It's inspiring. Poetry can inspire like nobody's business, right? More than 1,000 prose. And so Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so Upanishads, so it has been sourced from the Upanishads. On our own, if we were to find these in the Upanishads, we would have to first wrap our head around the Vedas, in which then you'll have to find the more than 200 Upanishads. And then you would have to pluck, and then the Sanskrit. And then each of those are formulas that can give you the solution based on how you want to use it also. And so instead of that, he said like God Himself has plucked the right ones and processed those and put in front of you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so Upanishadsu. Oh, what is in it, by the way, in the Gita? It says Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidyayam. What is Brahma Vidya? It is a Vidya of all that exists. Brahma is the biggest, the greatest, not even biggest, the one that pervades it all.
Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma.
Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma is like Sarvam is like everything. Khalu Idam is that exists here. Khalu is alone Brahma. So whatever exists. So the knowledge of that, or the really knowledge is Gyan, Vidya is skill. There is a nuanced difference between knowledge and skill. And such is the difference between Gyan and Vidya. Gyan is general, skill is the particular usage of it. How do I use it? The application of it. Right? That skill. So Brahma Vidyayam. Yeah, Brahma exists, so what? This is how you can understand it. This is how you can know it. Hence, skill. What does it do? Yoga Shastra. It unites. It's the science. Why Shastra? Shastra means science. Science because it's repeatable. It is provable. It can be experienced. And it is consistent. Those are the features of science. No matter who tries this, whatever your height, weight, color of skin, religion, wherever you were born, it doesn't matter. No matter who tries it, this science. Just like when I throw, no matter who throws a ball, it doesn't matter. It's going to come down like that. They will experience that. And the same person tries it 1,000 times. The 1,000 times the ball will come down like that. The same person exercising this every time will experience that. Is it repeatable? Yes. Consistent also. And hence Shastra. These are not just words slapped on whimsically or carelessly or, let's pick it from here. Very precise, very specific words. Yoga Shastra. That science of uniting with, of unity consciousness. How do you experience that you are one with the other and the many? Actually experiencing that. So Shri Krishna, and then the next is Shri Krishna Samvade. It's in the form of a samavad, which means this is a beautiful word, that a conversation that holds equal place, equal space, equal authority for both. Sama is equal. Vad is argue. Vad no kogalu. Marathi like vad khala. Vad vivad. Both can argue with equal power. Both have equal authority, autonomy. Arjun and Krishna pushing back on each other, and you see that. And so this isn't like, well, thou shalt. Right? I'm saying it, just do it. It's not like, let's talk through this. Let's walk together in it. You can question it. You must, in fact, question it. And he does, right? Again and again. Krishna has asked questions and Arjuna has questions in the Gita also. So hence Samvade. Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yogo Nama. This is the name of Vyasa Gita. Krishna didn't say, hey, let's drink some water and I'll start the next chapter. Right? Like it was a continuous conversation. It's like three categories of Shraddha, of faith. Sapta Dasho Adhyaya, 17th chapter. And then we say, Shri Krishna Paramastu, may this take me to Krishna alone. May the whatever good I beget from this, may I flow it right back into Krishna alone. He hasn't said that. He hasn't said, like, bring it all to me. And Vyas hasn't suggested that, but it's a devotee's heart says that. And so with that, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Hari Bol.